You hear this term all the time, right? Geopolitical risk. But what does it even mean? Is it a war, a trade spat, an election? It just feels so big and vague and honestly pretty unpredictable. But what if we could take all of that chaos and boil it down to a single hard number? Is it even possible to get scientific about something this messy?
Well, here's the new reality for any business out there. This kind of instability, it isn't some rare storm you can just, wait out anymore. It's the new climate we're all operating in. It's a constant pressure that's shaping every single decision, from where you source your materials to where you invest your money. The old ways of thinking about risk, they just don't cut it.
And that's the big question we're going to tackle. We're going to deconstruct a fascinating method that tries to do exactly that, to turn this huge, hazy threat into a concrete financial metric, something a company can actually grab onto and use.
Now, to really get why this new approach is so different, we first have to understand why the old models are falling short. So let's start with a classic idea from the world of insurance, and you'll see pretty quickly why it needs a major upgrade for the world we live in today.
Look, traditional risk management is awesome for figuring out the cost of, say, a factory fire. It's a terrible event for sure, but it's contained. You can calculate the damage. But a geopolitical event like a trade war? That's not contained at all. It's systemic. The effects ripple out in these totally nonlinear, unpredictable ways that the old models just can't track.
So to get a handle on risk, the insurance industry came up with this really smart concept, probable maximum loss, or PML. Now, it's not the absolute doomsday worst-case scenario. It's more like the plausible worst case. It's a fantastic tool for specific incidents, but it begs the question, how on earth do you adapt this for the sprawling, interconnected nature of global risk?
Well, if you want to build a better model, you've got to start by measuring what you could call the global weather. And this approach does it by blending three really powerful macro indicators that, when you put them together, paint a surprisingly clear picture of the world's risk environment.
And this chart just lays out the architecture perfectly. The whole thing is called the Country Risk Indicator, or CRI. Now look at the weighting. Geopolitical risk, that's the real actual events happening, that makes up half the score. The other half is split between global uncertainty and economic sentiment. So it's a balance of real shocks and the overall vibe.
The absolute bedrock of this model is the Geopolitical Risk Index, the GPR. What it does is systematically scan major international newspapers for keywords, words related to war, conflict, and diplomatic tension. This isn't about someone's opinion. It's pure data based on the language being used to describe what's actually happening in the world.
Okay, next up is the World Uncertainty Index, or WUI. And the method here is so simple, but wow, is it powerful. It literally just counts how many times the word uncertainty shows up in these standardized country reports. What you get is a global barometer for how hard it is for leaders and businesses to actually see what's coming next.
And finally, to round it all out, you've got the World Sentiment Index, the WSI. Using those same reports, this index measures the mood music. By analyzing the tone, the balance of positive and negative words, it tells us if the overall economic story for a country is one of optimism or pessimism.
So, we've got our measure of the risk out there in the world, but that's only half the story. Because a storm doesn't hit every ship the same way, right? The next crucial step is to look inward, at the company itself.
I mean, think about it. The same massive geopolitical storm can literally sink one company while another one just sails right on through, barely even rocked. The difference isn't luck. It's something called organizational resilience. It's a company's internal structure, its processes, you could even call it its DNA. That's the critical shock absorber.
So how do you measure that? How do you put a number on something like resilience? You do it with a systematic internal stress test. The model audits a company's key processes, and it identifies and scores both the vulnerabilities that make it weaker and the resilience factors that make it stronger. It turns a fuzzy concept into a set of hard numbers.
And listen, this audit isn't some abstract theoretical exercise. It looks at concrete, real-world business functions. How good is your governance? How diversified is your supply chain, really? How tough is your cybersecurity? Every one of these areas gets a score, and that score is going to directly impact the final risk number.
All right, now for the main event. We have the external pressure from those macro indicators, and we have the internal resilience score from the company audit. It's time to put it all together and get that single powerful number we've been talking about.
First things first, the calculation starts with a solid, unambiguous number. The company's total annual value of production in the specific country we're looking at. This isn't profit, it's not revenue.
It's the total value of what is actually being created on the ground.
Next, you take that production value and you multiply it by our country risk indicator. This is the moment where that external geopolitical weather directly hits the financial baseline. A higher country risk score automatically means a higher potential loss. It's that simple.
And here it is, the final crucial step. That risk-adjusted number now gets modified by the company's own unique resilience score. Having strong governance or a diverse supply chain, that's going to reduce the final number. Weak IT security or poor compliance, that's going to push it right back up.
And what you get at the end is this, the Global Probable Maximum Loss, or GPML. It's not a vague feeling of anxiety anymore. It's a clear dollar and cents value. It is a plausible, data-driven estimate of the economic loss that one specific company could face from geopolitical risk in one specific country.
Okay, so you have the number. It's a powerful tool, no doubt. But what does having it actually achieve? Well, it fundamentally changes the entire conversation, from just talking about risk to actively managing resilience.
This quote just hits the nail on the head. The point of this whole scientific approach isn't to perfectly predict the next crisis. That's impossible. The point is to transform all that uncertainty into what they call a governable variable, something you can actually measure, manage, and plan for.
And that really brings us to the ultimate takeaway here. Strengthening your supply chain, improving your digital security, beefing up your governance, these aren't just good practices anymore. They are measurable financial decisions that directly lower your company's exposure to global shocks. They have a real, tangible impact on your bottom line.
Which leaves us with a final thought to chew on. Every single company meticulously tracks its financial assets and liabilities on a balance sheet. But in an era where geopolitical risk is just the new normal, maybe it's time for every company to start tracking its resilience in exactly the same way. What would your company's resilience balance sheet even look like?